Anne Frank, a name that has echoed through time, across generations, across continents, a name tied to history, to tragedy, and to hope. For many, she's a symbol, a girl who wrote in hiding, whose diary outlived her, whose words bore witness to one of humanity's darkest times. But before she was a name in textbooks, before she became an icon, she was just a girl with dreams, with fears, with a heart full of life. This is the story of Anne Frank, not just a diary, not just a tragedy, but a life. Anneliese Marie Frank was born on June 12, 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany, the second daughter of Otto and Edith Frank. Her parents came from well-respected Jewish families, and for a time, life in Frankfurt was comfortable. Otto was a businessman, pragmatic and forward-thinking, while Edith was deeply religious, devoted to her family and faith. Anne and her older sister Margot were raised in a home that valued education, culture, and kindness. But even as Anne took her first steps, played in the garden, and giggled with Margot, Germany was changing. The country was in turmoil. The Great Depression had left people desperate, and in their desperation, they turned to Adolf Hitler, a man who promised a return to glory but built his vision on hatred. By 1933, Hitler was chancellor. The Nazi Party's grip tightened, and Jews, once neighbors, friends, and citizens, became targets. Otto Frank saw the writing on the wall. He knew what was coming, and he knew his family had to leave before it was too late. In the autumn of 1933, Otto moved his family to the Netherlands. Amsterdam, with its canals and cobbled streets, became their new home. It was a fresh start, a second chance. Otto set up a company, Opekta, selling pectin for jam making. Margot excelled in school, quiet and studious. Anne, ever the opposite, was full of energy, charming and quick-witted. She made friends easily, loved telling stories, and had an insatiable curiosity about the world. For a time, it seemed they had outrun the danger, but history was not done with them yet. In 1940, the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. Anne was just 11 years old when she watched her second home fall, and this time there was nowhere left to run. At first, life changed in small, insidious ways. Jews were banned from certain places, parks, cinemas, swimming pools. Then they were banned from public schools, then businesses, and the walls closed in further. In 1942, the Nazis began mass deportations. Jewish families were being taken away in the dead of night, packed into cattle cars, and sent to work camps. People whispered about what happened to them, but the truth was too monstrous to believe. Then the order came. On July 5, 1942, a letter arrived for Margot Frank, a call-up notice from the SS. It meant deportation. Otto and Edith had planned for this day, but not so soon. They had an escape plan, a hiding place. They had no choice but to go. The next morning, the Franks disappeared. Behind Otto Frank's business at Prinsengasse 263 was a hidden annex. Concealed behind a movable bookcase, it became home to 8 people: the Franks, the Von Peltz family, and later a dentist named Fritz Pfeffer. Life in the annex was suffocating. They had to stay silent during the day, fearful of being overheard by workers in the warehouse below. They rationed food, relied on trusted employees like Mip Cheese and Beb Voskujo for survival, and lived in a constant dread of discovery. For Anne, a child forced into unnatural stillness, the annex was both a prison and a refuge. She poured her emotions into her diary, chronicling every fear, every argument, every dream. She wrote of loneliness, of feeling misunderstood, of longing for freedom. She wrote about Peter Von Peltz, the teenage boy in the annex, and the complicated feelings she had for him. Was it love? Or was it just desperation for connection? She wrote about wanting to be a writer, be someone, to matter. She wrote, even when there was no hope left. August 4, 1944. A pounding on a bookcase door, boots storming up the stairs, armed men shouting. Someone had betrayed them. To this day, the betrayer remains unknown. Some say it was William Van Maren, a suspicious warehouse worker. Others suspect a woman named Lena Hartog. In 2022, researchers point to Arnold Wunderberg, a Jewish notary who may have given up on addresses to save his own family. But the truth is lost to time. The result was the same. Anne, her family, and everyone in the annex were arrested and taken away. Their first stop was Westbrook, a transit camp where Jews were processed like cattle, stripped of dignity, awaiting their final destination. Then, on September 3, 1944, the Franks were crammed into a train bound for Auschwitz. It was the last transport from the Netherlands. Anne was 15. In Auschwitz, there were no 15-year-olds, only those who could work and those who couldn't. She was deemed fit enough, badly. But Auschwitz broke people fast. The cold, the hunger, the death. She saw it all. She saw it all. She saw her mother, Edith, weaken before her eyes, refusing to eat so her daughters could have more. She saw the sick and the weak sent to the gas chambers. And then the final blow. In October 1944, Anne and Margot were selected for transport. They were sent to Bergen-Belsen. It was a death sentence. Bergen-Belsen was a place of filth, of disease, of the forgotten. Typhus ran rampant. Food was a fantasy. People collapsed and were trampled bodies left to rot. Margot, always the quiet, studious one, became too weak to stand. One day, she fell from her bunk and didn't get up, and followed days later. She died in February 1945. She never knew the war was nearly over. She never knew that Otto Frank had survived. And she never knew her diary would change the world. Otto Frank returned to Amsterdam alone. His wife was dead. His daughters were gone. Everything was ash. But then, Mibjis, one of the brave souls who had hidden them, handed him Anne's diary. At first, he couldn't bear to read it. But when he did, he realized his daughter's voice had not been silenced. She had left behind a testament, a warning, a piece of herself. In 1947, the diary of a young girl was published. It was raw, honest, filled with all the things Anne had never been allowed to say out loud. It became one of the most powerful books of the 20th century. Today, Anne Frank's name is known across the world, but she was more than a name, more than a symbol. She was a girl who laughed, who dreamed, who wrote, a girl who mattered. And though she did not survive, her words did, and they always will.